bringing up the issue of Nigeria's rising debt profile. But the federal government, has embraced the loan given by the World Bank. And like I did state earlier, the loan is expected to bolster Nigeria's economy and, create some form of stability around the Nigerian economy, as well as support its vulnerable population. But we do have our guest now on standby who hopefully will help us, put some perspective into, what this loan is expected to do and how Nigerians should, react, regarding this loan. I'm now joined by my guest, who is a public affairs analyst, Dr. Emmanuel Okoliko. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on Business Daily this morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Amaka. Good morning, Trust TV, and it's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, Doctor, this beautiful morning. Doctor, you have seen or heard the responses by most Nigerians, reacting to the loan that Nigeria, talking about the $2.25 billion loan by the World Bank to Nigeria. Great and very important intentions, right there by the World Bank, talking about creating some form of economic stability for the Nigerian economy, which, by the way, is said to be the largest economy in Nigeria. But let us hear from you now, Doctor. What was your reaction regarding the approval of this loan, especially when you look back in retrospect and how much of loans Nigeria has garnered over the years? We seem to have some form of technical challenge there, but while we try to get back to our guest, let's go on a short break. When we return, the conversation continues to stay. And you're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, I did give a summary on what our discuss will be on today. And we did see the approval of the $2.25 billion World Bank loan for Nigeria by the World Bank. And this loan, according to the World Bank, is aimed at, creating some form of economic stability for Africa's largest economy, that is Nigeria. And I have my guest, who is a public affairs analyst, Dr. Emmanuel Okoliko, right now with me. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on Business Daily. Can you hear me, Dr. Okoliko? We seem to be having a bit of technical difficulties right there. But like I did state earlier, the World Bank has approved a sum of $2.25 billion for Nigeria, which is expected to create, some form of economic stability in the Nigerian economy, as well as support its vulnerable populations. Let's try again to reach our guest, Dr. Emmanuel Okoliko. Can you hear me this morning?
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on Business Daily.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, Mr. Okoliko.
Thank you, Mr. Okoliko, for joining us on Business Daily. You did hear me in my introduction, the sum of $2.25 billion approved by the World Bank for Nigerians. And like I did say, great intentions, talking about creating some stability in the Nigerian economy and reaching the vulnerable Nigerians. However, Nigerians, have some form of reservations, especially with the rising debts that Nigeria has accrued over the years. What is your thought, or what are your thoughts on the loan that was just approved by the World Bank for Nigeria?
Yes. Government is expected to provide public goods, is expected to deliver the goods as captured in the social contract that the people had signed with leadership. So it is expected that for government or for people in position of leadership to deliver the goods, there is that track of financing the projects financing respective critical sectors of the economy are going forward if we must deliver the goods as expected. And one of the major sources of financing government projects is external financing, external sources where the World Bank fall into, and the domestic sources, domestic resources of the nation may not be sufficient to meet or to grapple with the realities of delivering these goods and running the economy as it is expected. And so when we hear loan from the World Bank, it is not supposed to raise dust. It's not expected to sound strange to our ears. And so as far as I'm concerned, and as far as every enlightened mind is, it is a normal thing to get external financing from the World Bank. It's okay to get loans, to finance government projects, and the approval, when that's why it's a process of application and approval. To earn the approval, to obtain the approval for World Bank, is a sign of confidence on the part of World Bank. The World Bank feels that they have confidence in the ability of Nigeria as a nation to pay back or to service the loans. And that's why they have given to us. And they have been designed to address critical sectors of the economy. The World Bank, for instance, the kind of loan the World Bank is offering here is at low interest rate, and it is expected to enable people in leadership undertake very critical, large-scale transformative projects like I've outlined in different critical sectors. And this may not be feasible if we want to rely on domestic resources alone. So these loans are going to, especially with these two tracks that these loans are expected to service, it is expected that poverty will be alleviated, inequalities will melt away to a reasonable extent, and fiscal pressures on the nation to drop. Yes. But if you are asking about my thoughts, now I will respond like every other Nigerian will respond to this. Now, as a Nigerian, there's always need to evaluate expectations, the gap between expectations and actual experience or actual reality that we have. If we take track record of a government that has served for 1 year, and within a period of 1 year, the records we have says that over 4 billion or about 4.9 billion US dollars has been approved already within this period. And they have been approved under very serious critical objectives. They are aimed at addressing very sensitive and critical sectors, the power sector. For instance, if the loan, the fraction of the loan taken in June last year, June, just about the month of takeoff of the government, if it is properly implemented as ensuring the rubrics of the expectations, the rubrics of the objectives, enshrined with predefined objectives before the loan was sought, is expected to improve. There should be improvement in generation, increased access, to reliable and very affordable electricity. And at the point where we now begin to hear, people put into different bands and then increase the electricity tariff again after getting loans and all of that, then it's also expected to boost economic activity, and economic activity by extension will boost economic productivity, economic growth for the entire nation, boost GDP and all of that. And then we see that it is more hardship, and the man who goes to the market, who went to the market yesterday to buy tomatoes, goes again this morning, the pressure increased. Then if we go to another tranche of that loan, and we can see that the expectations as enshrined in the rubrics, that there will be enhanced economic opportunities for women, and then women will have more access to new skills, learn training, get training, get more finance, and get more involved, participate more in decision-making processes that affect them. And then we now begin to measure how far so far. And then we have another one about September, which is like a flow from the women empowerment again. We have girls, child education, another aspect of that loan again, granted by the World Bank. It was expected that there will be more enrollment now of the girl child, the educational performance and all of that
we seem to have, lost
should
our
increase.
guest.
It's expected to the academy. We now begin to ask ourselves, how far so far? Then we'll go
having some technical difficulties there, but Emmanuel Okoliko, public affairs analyst, talking regarding, how far Nigeria was able, or how much Nigeria was able to get from the World Bank in the years past, having emerged as a top recipient of the World Bank loan, and not so much has been done so far regarding accountability and transparency when it comes to using and spending that loan. I believe we have been able to get our guest back. Emmanuel Okoliko is still right here with us. Thank you again for joining us, Emmanuel Okoliko. But I'd like for you to go on with your thoughts on the levels of transparency and accountability that we have had so far, in the area of loans that have been gotten from the World Bank in the past.
Yes, due to the technical challenges we are experiencing this morning, I may not be able to say exactly where we stopped, where you. But the summary of all I was saying is that our in line of a free-minded, unbiased Nigerian who respond objectively by the loans we got in June for women, in June for power sector, and eventually we found ourselves grappling with the realities of increased tariffs and all of that, and people discriminated into or distributed into so far as the loan we got for renewable energy, individual reliance on fossil fuels to mitigate climate change, has it helped to implement sustainability and all that? How has the one with increased how has the one we got for empowerment, or we provided more finance to women and has increased economic activity and flowed by extension as a multiplier effect to economic production, GDP growth and all of that, and most increase or improved standard of living of the people. Now, if we do all of this as a Nigerian who signed a association with leadership, the question will be, now in June this year, we are now asking for another loan, but delayed. It has been approved. Oh, kudos to our needs that World Bank has confidence in us and our ability to pay back. To actually implement this or translate this loan approval to ameliorate it if we have a rising cost, and we are not seeing results of these loans that have been obtained and approved by the one said. Also concerned because if between January and May alone, we are recording over, we now have to service the finance from World Bank 2.1 million to $1 just within a space of 5 months. What is the multiplier effect? What is going to be at the receiving end? The ordinary Nigerian is going to be receiving pressure, increase in the already this. Do I say there will be exacerbation of the socio-economic challenges we are facing right now? It's so difficult here for people to in our climate right now to afford anything. Food inflation is terrible. It's expected that all that will rise. Then we are at the risk, considering if objectively to analyze the increase in national debt service run into a debt trap. We'll run into a debt trap where we'll be in a rigmarole, economic rigmarole.
Emmanuel Okoliko there speaking to issues around, debt servicing and Nigeria's rising debt. And the context of the discussion is that just recently the World Bank approved the sum of $2.25 billion for Nigeria. And that money is aimed at, creating some stability in the Nigerian economy and also targeting the vulnerable Nigerians. And our guest, Mr. Emmanuel Okoliko, indeed said that it was not uncommon for, countries to, ask for loans from international lending organizations, as it is highly impossible for most countries to get, funding from domestic lenders. Hence, the need for Nigeria to approach international bodies such as the World Bank for loans like Nigeria has done. So it is not uncommon. However, where the problem does lie is in the area of servicing these loans and Nigeria's rising debt profile. But let us go on a short break, and when we return, the conversation will continue. So do stay. And you're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And we had already started a conversation on the recently approved World Bank loan to Nigeria in the sum of $2.25 billion. And my guest, Emmanuel Okoliko, is still right here with us. I'd like for you to continue your thoughts. You had started, speaking in the area of how it was not uncommon for countries to, get loans or get funding externally, and that is what Nigeria is doing. However, the concerns are around transparency and accountability when it comes to, spending these monies received from international lenders. So I'd like for you to continue your thought, Mr. Okoliko.
Yes. Sorry about the technical challenge we have this morning, but I was saying that it's not uncommon to ask for loans from the World Bank, especially because the domestic resources alone would not be able to allow government or leadership of the nation to embark on real-time, large-scale transformative projects that will deliver the goods to the citizens of the country, because government have the responsibility to provide public goods at all costs. And what matters is, one, the ability to pay back. That is why you must take what you can pay back and what you can finance, what you can service, what you can manage, and then you must also be strategic in implementation, so that the loans obtained, the loans approved and received will translate to reality in practical terms. And practical terms here is when you say that in June last year, about $750 million was approved and received for power. Then there should be improvement in power generation, transmission, and distribution, so that the man on the street goes to switch on the switch, put on the switch, and it is light. There should be more. It should translate to better economic activity, so that will flow also to economic productivity and economic growth. GDP should grow so high, and the standard of living too of the people should also grow. Growth and development should flow, and all of that. And then if we also, in the same June, got more loan for women empowerment,
then today we should have better access for the women to more financing, more skills. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Go on with your thoughts, please.
Skills, other support services should be available to the women, and then we should have women participating more, doing the talk when it comes to decision-making process and all of that. Then, if we proceeded for more loans from the external source, from the World Bank, in September of the same year, for girl child education, we should have more in terms of enrollment, in terms of retention rate now of the girl child in secondary schools, in schools and all of that at that age. If we got more loans in December for renewable energy, then at this point, we shouldn't be relying so much, or the level of reliance on fossil fuels and lower carbon emissions and all of that should have reduced, excess carbon emission that we have around should have reduced, should have dropped at this point. And then the level of reliance should have also dropped. These are indices or metrics that will show that the loans received had been utilized to some extent. So how far can the ordinary Nigerian measure so far that between June and December, these loans taken had some impact? And then by June of 2024, we are saying that there is we are getting another approval to distribute or channel into 2 critical sectors that are expected also to boost economic stabilization, bring about reforms, and also bring about resource mobilization and all of that. Of course, this is expected to increase our fiscal revenues, yes, both in the oil and non-oil sector. It's expected also that, like you did mention, the vulnerable people in the population should also smile home. Now, this vulnerable, how would the vulnerable person in our population, in our tribe, have confidence and trust in leadership if they have not seen improvement in the loans approved before? Yet, the cost of servicing these loans keeps rising. You know that the World Bank has not just smiled and given us this loan, but they have given us at a cost. And record has it that external debt service payment has reached $2.19 billion US. Just between this spike, this huge increase happened between the space of 5 months. That's from January to May.
Mr. Okoliko, I will cut you short there because you have mentioned, the cost of servicing these loans. And one question that is on the minds of most Nigerians is, how Nigerian government can mitigate the risk that will be associated with, servicing these loans. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, the World Bank loan in the immediate, if properly implemented as it were, could bring some temporary relief. But beyond what government tells us, many of us find it difficult to believe that government have capacity to repay these loans. And in my own objective and personal opinion, we are taking these loans at the risk of falling into debt trap, just like one of the persons who commented earlier did mention. And the debt trap is a situation where you are just in an economic rigmarole. You get loans that outweighs the cost of servicing it outweighs the benefits you are going to get. It is expected, going by my earlier thought, if this is translated to boosting local resources, mobilizing local domestic resources, mobilizing domestic investment, mobilizing domestic economic activity, mobilizing economic productivity within, reducing importation and increasing exportation, that will also, in the time being, pull in or lure in external investors. These are the ways, the main strategic ways that you expect that this same loan will translate to better economic activities that will increase local revenue. As long as local revenue, domestic revenue, is not increased, it's not boosted, it's not bolstered, how are we going to service these loans? These high and rising cost of servicing this debt. So I am as scared, I am as worried and concerned as every other Nigerian that we may not be able to, it may be an economic rigmarole eventually, and we may not be able to grapple with the realities of paying this rising cost. It will eventually, it may, let me be probabilistic now, it may eventually translate to diversion of just mere diversion of resources that we are supposed to use now to engage in the provision of public goods, you know, better improved healthcare for the populace, improved education quality, education for the people, improved infrastructure for the people, and all of that. Rather than having that, we will now be spending money on servicing loans. That is diversion. And when that diversion takes place, it is potential exacerbation of the socio-economic challenges we have now. Inflation will keep rising. The naira, the naira will go back again in the coming weeks. You know, by all normal economic analysis, we could say that there will be more dollar in the system, and then naira will get empowered, you know, and then the difference, the forex position will change temporarily. But
Well said.
It is only going to be temporary relief.
Well said, Emmanuel Okoliko. I personally believe you are only re-echoing the minds of most Nigerians, and that we saw while reviewing the social media comments that we did get. But thank you for sharing your thoughts on the recently approved $2.25 billion loan by the World Bank for Nigeria. Well, this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily. But join the conversation in social media and let us hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Nigeria's rising debt burden and debt servicing? And what are your thoughts on how, Nigeria can, properly manage or service this debt in the years to come? Thank you for watching. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Bye for now.